Welcome to the Marvelous Moms Club podcast, where you'll be not only allowed, but encouraged to dream big dreams and imagine the very best future for yourself and your family. Throw away expectations and perfection and embrace the messy beauty of what it means to be a marvelous mom. I'm your host, Kirsten Tyrell, and I can't wait to help you discover what makes you marvelous. All right, everybody, welcome to today's episode. It's going to be a good one, so maybe grab a notebook, a pen. This is going to be an inspiring episode, which I'm really excited to bring to you. Today, I'm joined by Today, I'm joined by Alex Rudnicka, and I'm probably still not saying that correctly, but we're pretty close, right? I know the importance of saying your name correctly.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. And yes, you've actually have said the name correctly. And don't worry, like people get it messed up all the time. So yeah, but you've done very well. Thank you so much.
Oh, good. Thank you. Well, I'm super happy to have you, and I'm excited for you to share your background and your story because it is one that's inspirational. So even though I say everybody, get your pens out for notes, I don't even mean like the business technical notes. I'm talking about like take a play from a playbook of somebody who has kind of gotten through the hard knocks and really created one of those amazing lives for themselves. So why don't you first start by introducing yourself a little bit, giving people background on what your mommy life looks like, how old your daughter is, and kind of introduce us in that way.
Yes, absolutely. And it's so nice to be asked to actually introduce yourself as opposed to what you do, actually talk about, who you are as a mom. And I think it's just a really nice kind of change to have that kind of conversation. So yes, I am a mom to a very cheeky and a very creative little girl who's 9. She's called Mia. And so, she's mixed race. She's, I'm kind of like from a white background. Her dad is Asian. So it's a very kind of like multicultural way of bringing her, which makes it even more interesting. So yes, that's who I am as a mom, and we live in England. So I know that this is quite exotic for you as well, probably. And she's just a completely free-spirited, and I think it's just very interesting to raise a child in today's world. Like, it's very different to the kind of upbringing that we had. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Very different. And it's so funny that I failed to say that from the beginning. You guys are going to hear a very different dialect today. You're not going to hear an American voice. You're going to hear a beautiful accent. And I love, oh my gosh, I've only had a couple of people on here who have an accent different from mine. And it's just so fun to listen to. So I'll just keep asking you random questions just to make you keep talking so we can all just listen to the romantic tone of your voice.
It's so sweet to hear that, because for all of you guys who are listening, it's actually one of the things that used to stop me for a really long time from building an online presence, because I had this weird, completely irrational fear that no one would trust me because of my accent, because I thought you can't have an international online business if your accent isn't American. It doesn't happen. I didn't see those people online. So it's just such a pleasure to hear that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, give us a little bit of background too, because I know even just your cultural background plays a little bit into your story, because you're living in London right now, but that's not where you were born and raised. So give us a little backstory, because I know that the backstory on your personal life is kind of what flows into your business and what you've created and why you've created it.
Yes, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Eastern Europe, in Poland. And I moved to England as a 21-year-old girl who couldn't speak a word of English, just really looking for a better future, I guess. I never planned to stay, but I fell in love with the language. I fell in love with the culture, and it was just a very, very interesting, beginnings. So normally people would come and maybe have some connections. I didn't know anyone could speak a word of English, as I said. And I had a lot of adventures. Looking back, I can see how courageous I was. Back then, I thought that I was scared of everything, and I was like the biggest kind of coward on earth, which is obviously not true. So just to give you a little bit of a start, I was working as a glass collector. That was my first job. And a glass collector, by the way, when you go to a restaurant, so that there is like the bar staff and the waiting staff that serves you, the glass collector is the person who like doesn't exist. And this person literally just like collects glasses and cleans them all day long, and that's what she does. She's not even allowed
Wow.
to serve people. She's just there to support people who are working in the restaurant, because that's the only thing I could do. And
Wow.
due to various circumstances, unfortunately, I found myself in a very challenging situation financially, where I had just few hours to find a place to stay, and I ended up living in a very dodgy hostel, which I didn't know at the time was a favorite place for the ex-offenders to stay when they got released from prison. So I
Oh,
ended up,
wonderful.
yes, I ended up living in a kind of like a cheap hostel, and I shared a room with 4 men, which was a really scary experience looking
Oh,
back then.
wow.
Those
Yeah.
were kind of like my beginnings, very different to where I'm now.
I would say, can you imagine your daughter in that same scenario now, all these years later? Does it just make you want to die a little bit?
Yes, it does. And to be honest with you, as I said before, it's interesting how when we go through challenging times, we just don't see our strength. I didn't see how courageous I was, because honestly, there was nothing stopping me from turning around and saying, okay, this is too scary. I'm going back home.
Hmm.
And I was a very shy. I wasn't like a 21-year-old who thinks that she owns the world and she's confident, she's going into adventures. No, I was like the quiet one, the one who couldn't speak, the English. So I was like, really people treat you like an idiot sometimes when you can't pronounce things properly.
Hmm.
And I just, looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, you were so brave. I can't even think that Mia, my daughter, would ever go through anything like that. That's just like unthinkable. But maybe this is why I didn't say anything to my parents of how bad it really was, because I didn't want to worry
Yeah.
them as well.
Right,
Mm.
you still kind of instinctively knew this is pretty treacherous place to be hanging out, and it's interesting how I think everybody kind of, maybe not in such dire circumstances, but we all get to a point where it's like, I can run home and I can give up on this, or I can keep going. And it's fascinating to me that that happens to any personality type. This isn't just like, you didn't see yourself as this big pusher, this big dreamer, this big whatever. You were very shy, and you were very much just kind of like in an explorative space where you're just like, what could I do? Like, what is going on here? What do I feel compelled to do? Why do I feel like being away from home and exploring your independence in a very quiet, kind of reserved way, which is really interesting to somebody like me, who it would be like, guess what I'm doing? Telling everybody, trying to make a big scene of it. So it's really cool, though, how you still can identify that now too, the strength that you had back then, even though you probably couldn't see it in yourself at the time.
Oh, I couldn't see it at all. Like nothing. Like back then there was no vision, there was no dream. If someone back then told me that I will have a business, I'd be like, what? No way, not me. So back then, because sadly, my parents obviously did the best job with me and with us that they could, but there were a generation after the war people. So, their
Mhm.
parents were the people who were in World War II. So they were quite emotionally damaged people. And back then, they didn't have resources how to raise children. And there was a lot of bad habits at home and, alcohol and that sort of stuff. So back then, I didn't have any dreams at all, and I didn't have any aspirations. I just knew what I didn't want. So it was just a
Mhm.
kind of a very blank space when I was like, I don't know where this is going to go, and I really have no plan, and nor do I have any dreams, because I didn't believe in myself that I could make anything happen at all. I just knew that I couldn't go back, and
Mhm.
sometimes that's where we need to start and kind of walk from
Mhm.
there.
Literally start by moving forward instead of continuing to look backward, which a lot of people do. They kind of look at that like, oh, but there's still kind of a fallback plan right there. There's still a trap door. And that seems like such a blessing, but sometimes it is a curse to know like that you can just go back into a comfort zone and nothing exciting or progressive ever happens in your comfort zone. So tell me kind of next steps. How did you go from glass collector and living in this scenario into what you have now, which is a thriving business empowering other female CEOs to do what they do and to live unapologetically and fearlessly?
Absolutely. So I wish I could give you like a very polished, straight line kind of answer,
Doesn't
but
work for anybody that way, though. That's just not, it doesn't go in a straight line. So it's actually normal.
yes, absolutely. Just to give you a little bit of a backstory, my first goal really was to create a normal life, because once I made the decision, okay, I'm going to stay in this country, I became very clear that I didn't want to live an immigrant life. And,
Mm-hmm.
as you probably may know, sometimes when people immigrate, they will stay within their own community with the language. I cut it all off. I didn't have any friends who spoke my language. I called home like once a week and I was like, no, if I'm about to stay, I'm going to build a regular, normal life, which for me back then, the dream of the dream of the dream was to
Mm-hmm.
have a smart job and like a 9 to 5. So that's what I did. Very, very slowly, I grew my career, so to speak, in the
Mm-hmm.
restaurant to being, a waitress. And then I went into hospitality management. And then I caught myself having, literally realized that I was working 100-hour week. So,
Mm-hmm.
people back then, I was already living in a kind of like a nice flat. I was just renting a room, and people thought I moved out because I was always at work. So that was kind of like a breaking point when I was like, okay, back then I knew I was a good employee and I was always very scared of everything, which made me, on the flip side, a very good employee because I've always did as I was told. I was always on time.
Mm-hmm.
I never, ever, ever called in sick because I was just scared of losing my job. I was so scared. Um, so looking kind of, at the next steps, I was like, okay, I kind of know my worth. I know that I represent something in the marketplace. I might not have many skills, but I'm kind of in management. It's kind of okay. But I wanted to actually for once have a life. I wanted the weekends off and the evenings off. And
Mm-hmm.
just a coincidence happened that I got myself a job in one of like major British banks. From a very bottom as a cashier, you're like this person who takes money from you when you go into the bank to pay into your account.
Mm-hmm.
And very quickly, within 3 months, I was promoted into management. So then I just kind of had that good life. I was like, okay, I kind of made it. I have a good
Yeah.
career. I was wearing smart clothes to work. I was, working 9 to 5, weekends off. And then I started realizing when I became a mom, and then I became a single parent as well. I just, I just kind of started asking for the first time in my life, what do I want? Like, what actually makes me happy? Because due to my background, I would just take any job to do anything just to kind of stay in the country. And then I was, kind of like going upwards. So I went into the bank just because there was an opportunity and I happened to have the position. It wasn't never my dream and I never questioned it. And it was
Mm-hmm.
only in management when I was working with my staff, when I was doing their appraisals, when I was working on their personal development, I started catching myself that when I was speaking to them about performance, how much they were selling, etc., I kind of felt the need to give them a different advice that was in line with the company's interest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they would tell me, I really don't like, the setup of this company, or this is my dream. And I wanted to go and tell them, well, go and fight for your dream. So I started
Yeah.
having this like big internal conflict, like, what do I do? Because I'm I am, I'm the manager and I need to manage them and I need to make sure that the performance is the best. But I really started realizing inside of me that I didn't care about the performance as much as I cared about the people and their fulfillment. So that
Mm-hmm.
was kind of a turning point for me when I looked in the mirror and I was like, wow, I don't want to be like my boss. Like, I don't want to run a bank. This isn't me.
Yeah.
So I kind of started to have an idea that I wanted to work with people, but I had no idea what to do with that.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite a I mean, it's not a weird evolution, it's a fascinating evolution, really, because there's always factors that you just cannot see coming. And it's so interesting how an entrepreneur is born, right? Like there's such a there that was like your birthing process into the life of an entrepreneur of like there's a problem here, I can see it. There's something I want to solve, there's something I want to connect and I want to like do and I don't know what that looks like yet, but I know that I can't it's like knowledge is power. I can't stay right here anymore because I've seen too much and I have this awareness now and now I feel like I'm supposed to do something about this. And that's exactly where it starts, that all of a sudden your whole life shifts into a totally different gear and now you're going to end up on a very different path.
Mm, absolutely. And when I tell this story, I always want to point out to whoever is listening that I didn't know the next steps. And at that time I was still living again, in that people pleasing mode, scared of most things. Even though I was very successful in my job, it was always led from fear. It was never led from desire. Okay, this is what I want. I'm going to go and make it happen. It was always playing small. But it was at that time that it just kept nudging me. It just wouldn't leave me alone. And it became such a big unhappiness in my life that it was only when I asked myself a question, okay, how, and this is where motherhood actually helped me so much, because from the outside everything was great. I had a good house, great work for a great company, one of the major companies in the UK, was being promoted regularly at work. So from the outside everything was great. But I then asked myself a question, because I was like, oh my God, so I built all of this to now go away and leave that and destroy it. And one question, one day when I would look myself in the mirror and I was like, how do you want to raise Mia? And very quickly the answer came to me, and the answer was like, well, I would want her to go and do what's right for her, rather than trying to fit into society or into what people will tell you that's a good life. So it was actually because of her that I was like, how can I raise a strong, independent woman who achieves her dreams in her life if I'm too scared to enter that kind of unknown territory of my own desires? And that's how everything started.
Well, and that's kind of like the linchpin, right? Put everything in motion, where you start to recognize those qualities that are in other people, and you're like, it's kind of like recognizing the world you don't want your child to be raised in, and you're like, how can I make this better for you? How can I create a different opportunity for you? And it's such a scary big undertaking in and of itself. So it's fascinating to me too that you literally had to probably at that point kind of check your fear and be like, if this is who I want to raise her to be, then I cannot continue to be, this version of myself. And so that's cool that it set it in motion. And how long ago was that you kind of had that realization or that aha moment of, okay, it's time to shift gears and start something on my own?
Absolutely. So the beginning of it all was about 5 years ago, because again, it was a lengthy process. Even though I had a so-called good life, I was a single parent immigrant with no support at all. So even though, I could pay for my house and everything else, financially, it wasn't like I had like loads of savings and I could say, okay, well, now I'm going to go and invest myself, or now I'm going to go and start a business. So it was 5 years ago. But even from that point, there were a lot of challenges along the way that led me to where I'm at today.
Yeah. Wow. And then, so how was kind of like the birth of the business born, and where did you kind of transition into creating what you have now, which I guess tell everybody a little bit about like what you do and how that's evolved into what you're doing now and today for women?
Yeah, absolutely. So I ran a company called CEO Female Entrepreneur, and it's essentially it's a mentorship / coaching company. So we do obviously VIP, like one-to-one coaching, but we're also introducing more and more lower end online products, because it's very important to me that we can cover women who want to go into entrepreneurship who maybe don't have that much money to invest into coaching, because that was the case of, for me, definitely. And the core of my company is to really help women stop being the so-called nice girl, right? Stop fitting in, stop trying to people please everyone else. And we work on the character of whom you need to be as a person to go and address your business goals. Because what I've learned from working with so many women was that strategy is not the be all end all, right? I mean, there is a reason why we have access to information, yet we don't do that, or we do it halfway and then we have no results. And people say, oh, mindset and positive thinking, etc., but you really need to work on your character, as in, like, do you keep your promises? Are you a procrastinator? Are you doing anything about it? Do you have good habits? There is so much that goes into this. So I really created a company that now, from my previous experiences and what I had to transform in myself. And this is where I'm very open about the fact that once I wanted to have a business, I actually failed 4, not 1, but 4 businesses. And all of them failed because of the fact that I was still stuck in fear, still stuck in people pleasing. And I couldn't really get myself to think like a business owner. I was still thinking like this little girl. And the more I work with women, the more I realize, oh my gosh, like there is more women like this. Like they have those dreams, but their character can't take them to make those dreams happen. So how it all evolved was, if we go back to the situation, that kind of like I'm at that mirror and I'm like, okay, cool, like it's time to make changes. What I did was the scariest thing I think ever. I think it was more. I think that moment was more scary than sharing a room with four men who just got out of prison. To be honest, um, so I quit the entire career, and everyone in the company tried to stop me, and they were telling me that I'm making a massive mistake. I had severe anxiety and really guessing, like just kind of like double checking with myself. Are you really sure? What if it's not going to work, etc. It was a really, really big bet because I already had a life built at that point. And I took a pay cut and a downgrade in my career, and I completely changed the field, and I went to work with ex-offenders. So from management, I just became kind of like a regular employee working with people because I wanted to work with people. I needed to understand the human mind, and I wanted to just have conversations with people every day, all day. So that's what I did for a few years. And that's kind of how my coaching style really developed. So I worked with people from, as I said, from prison. I had the wonderful opportunity to actually work in prison for about 3 months as well, which was one of a kind experience, really, to be in that world, because it's just so different to what we know, that it's like a whole different universe on its own, all the way to people from trauma and long-term unemployed, long-term anxiety, long-term depression. So I really had, before I started my coaching business as successful now, I had a really thorough understanding of how people behave, why they do what they do, and how to create change. Because I created a change in myself. I changed myself from being scared of everything to being confident. I changed myself from despising sales to being very good at sales and passionate about sales, and from absolutely hating marketing to embracing marketing. So I just, from a human behavior point of view, I just had a very thorough education how to work with people, and that's why I apply in my job, in my career today, which was a very organic growth, because my first coaching business was just a regular life coaching business, but because I was so broke, I had to build everything myself. Like I literally taught myself WordPress. I couldn't even get a landing page because I couldn't afford that. So I would look at people's websites, and then I would tweak my WordPress pages to build so it looked like this, because like the software that you did the landing page, I couldn't afford it.
Right.
So very, very organically, just people start asking me like, how did you do this? How did you do that? And I was like, well, I taught myself. So it was just a very, very organic growth into them business coaching. And again, when I did business coaching, I started realizing and seeing those patterns in women of fear, of people pleasing, or of feeling like this small girl. And that's kind of when I was like, oh, okay, I think I know what's going on. And I just started kind of like posting about it. I started making posts like the nice girl is killing your business, and people really resonated with it. So it was just really, it was really organic. I never actually set out to have that as my business, to be honest.
Wow. Well, that's how it goes, right? You never really do exactly what you set out to do, but it's so cool how that whole it's like the education of life, which is sometimes far better than the education of actual education, because
Mm.
your exposure to all those different things that make people tick. I mean, somebody would just literally need to go to your website now, which we will link to in the show notes and we can talk about in a second, but you read the testimonials and you really do have this global company where you've been able to empower people. And the reason that works on the level that you're doing it is because you're not talking at people, you're talking to people, because you've connected with them and you've really gotten to know the unique things about, I guess, the human brain and the way that people react to things and the way that they choose to live life. And ending up somewhere like prison, I mean, that's right there is such an amazing psychology to study. So it's really a unique and very interesting path that got you to where you are right now.
Absolutely, because from my own struggles and transformations that I had to go through, I have a very good understanding that when businesses fail, it's because of the business owner. It really is as simple as that. Because you want to find a problem in the company, you want to find a problem in the business, go to the head always. And I know that this is a harsh thing to say, but there is a reason why I failed for businesses. Like, you can't go into business and hate sales. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I literally, I couldn't even say the word. And so um what we do nowadays is just we really educate women that everything is a skill. And all you need to do is to figure out what skill set is missing from where you are right now to where you want to be, where you want to build your business. Because I do work with, with service-based businesses mainly, and then work on that. And the skill is not just a copywriting or how to be on video or, how to close a sales call or how to do content marketing. We talk about the intangible skill set as well. So confidence is a skill. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I used to be scared of everything, and I never believed that anything was possible for me. And that was the very thing that was stopping me. The moment that I figured out, okay, I have to take responsibility for teaching myself the skill of confidence, everything started shifting for me. So we do very, very core level, very basic level of education that really shows women that it's just about a skill. It's not who you are as a person. It's not about your background. It's not about how messed up or broken you are or what you've been through or whatever. It's about the skill set. If you don't have the skill set where you can't hit the goal, but if you know what the skill set is, and I can give you the way to practice the skill set, then there is nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, that you can't achieve as long as you're prepared to put in the work. So we're very much kind of like old school, work ethic and work on yourself, self-development kind of stuff. I'm not going to tell you to meditate on the cloud and everything will just attract you. And don't get me wrong, I love the law of attraction and I love meditation. I just understand that when you need that grit and you need that kind of character to really make things happen in the real world. So that's kind
Right.
of what we go. Yeah.
That's cool. I love it. And I love that you have kind of that opportunity. No matter what level people are at, you have an amazing program that people can buy, or you have the one on one coaching. So there's something for everybody over there. And here's what I think is cool. I've seen some people kind of go through this evolution that's obviously not even the same story as yours, but it's a process from that timid, fearful based kind of persona where they get stuck. And then the way that they explode into being this amazing leader and this amazing entrepreneur and this person who people are just like, whoa, hey, I got to pay attention to them. And there's always just like something about that process that's fascinated me. And so I love that you kind of created a system of sorts too to take people through. Your dreams might feel really small, you might be really afraid, it might feel like you're crazy for wanting this, but here's how we're going to get it done. Here's how we're going to like cut through the time that it's going to take for you to be insanely successful, which is something we all need.
Absolutely. And I love what you say, because I really wish, and I think that's the thing, what that especially women, that they don't get for some reason. I really try for my marketing to be authentic and be talking about, hey, it's gonna take work, it's gonna take grit, and that's okay. I really want to try to avoid being the kind of like, having laptop on the beach and yeah, money's just gonna come kind of like roll in, etc. Although those things can happen after some time.
Mhm.
But I really want to educate women to see that, what, true heroes are made through struggle and through
Mhm.
adversity. This is what makes you grow. Stop trying to look for the easy solutions. Stop trying to buy into, it's so interesting because I work with a lot of coaches, and at the beginning, I used to feel like this kind of poor Cinderella who didn't have beautiful branding, and very much now, even now, my branding is kind of minimal. And I had those women who would come to me, and they had the most stunning websites ever. I mean, they look like $1 million, and they were broke, like they were
Mhm.
making zero money. And it's
Yeah.
just so important that we educate women, especially in business, to say, listen, like, your skills are everything. Like, you're gonna have to put in the work. You don't have to look fancy to get started. Just teach you. Let me show you how to make. Just start from making that first dollar, right? And then another one and another one and another one. Like my prices weren't always what they are right now. There was a time when I didn't believe that people would pay $200 to work with me for 6 months, right? I mean, that's ridiculous. So I'm very passionate about showing women that, you know what, there is a reason why you're going through a tough time. And it is that very reason that experience will shape you into whom you need to be. Because when you are called to do transformational work, there is no escaping the pain. Like you need to be shaped into the teacher and you need to be shaped into the mentor. And if you never struggled, how are you going to carry people in that space when they come to the call and they're like, I have no idea how this is going to happen. If you've never done impossible things yourself, if you've never overcome any struggles yourself. So I think I wish that women could see that their struggles are so valuable and they shaping them into who they need to be.
Yeah. I love that so much. I needed to hear that for myself too. Just in such a different like realm. In fact, like not even with business, just as a person, how can you carry people to a new place? You know, even the mission of this podcast, it has become so much more connected and raw for me after going through struggle. And a lot of the struggles have been not apparent. They're not out there where it's like I lost a child or I went through a divorce. I mean, I did do that a long time ago, but I mean, the things that I've kind of gone through have been frustrating and they've made me angry. But now I'm realizing coming out on the other side, how could I relate to women even the same way that you are and pushing them to be something bigger and like, I hate even saying it that way. You're great how you are. Pushing them to be okay with wanting more if I hadn't gone through the fire myself of the struggle and what it was going to look like to make that happen. It's not authentic to hear it coming from somebody who's like, I've never actually experienced that, but I think if you just believe in yourself, you can do it.
Absolutely. There is a reason. So back in my prison times, there is a reason why people who, and this is like a very like, kind of like a rough example, but I'm going to say it because it's relevant. It's a kind of like a good metaphor to what we're talking about. There is a reason why in the drug centers, the counselors are ex-drug addicts. There is a reason for it. And it's because they've gone through the hell of cleaning themselves up and they know that it is a hell. And in fact, because of the fact that they survived hell, they know how far they can push the person in front of them so they can go through their hell. And so exactly, there is just so much treasure in going through your own struggles and having respect for what's happening and seeking the lessons, because they're happening for a reason and they absolutely perfectly are preparing you to whom you need to be to give back to other people. And, back then I didn't see the bigger picture. I didn't understand, this poor immigrant girl, I had like one shirt that I used to wash in a communal sink. So the hostel had like one big kitchen right downstairs. And because back then I was so broke, I only had one white shirt when I worked as a glass collector. I would get home about midnight and I would wash this shirt in the sink to be ready for the next day, etc. And there were people like smoking crack around me. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? I was so scared. But right now, I can tell you one thing, that nothing touches me, because I'm like, I've gone through that and I did okay. And so people will have their own versions of kind of overcoming those things. But it's just so important that we talk about those things, because there is way too much fake kind of, oh, look at me, I started a business and after a month I did 6 figures, but they don't tell you the backstory that they were already in a 6-figure salary and they knew exactly what they were doing and they just transitioned to be a freelancer, and that's how they kind of happened. So it's important to talk about those things. Yeah,
absolutely. I completely agree. I'm glad that you went there, because it is such a smoke and mirrors type of an industry to be in. And it's good to kind of call a little bit of reality check to it, and also make sure the authenticity always exists when you're going to learn from somebody. And that's why I love podcasting, because you get a sense of really somebody's like character right off the bat. It's so different than reading words on a page. So I really appreciate you being on here for people to kind of connect the dots. And if you're somebody they need in their life, I'm really thrilled that they would have found you through this channel. So thank you again for being here. And I have a couple of more questions for you, and then I will let you go. But number one, are you a reader, and what are you reading right now? And number two, what makes you a marvelous mom?
I am a huge reader. You should see my room. Sometimes when I have guests for the first time, they're like, "Why there are so many books in here?"
You're like, this is furniture. This is just grab a stack and sit down. What's the problem?
Books have absolutely raised me. Books have healed me, and books have taught me everything that I know today. I'm a huge reader. Nowadays, not so much. Nowadays, I'm more of an intentional reader. Back then, when I didn't know anything, I was just reading anything and everything because I didn't know what I needed. What I'm reading right now is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I cannot recommend this book highly enough. I mean, because if you really truly can break the habit of being yourself, then all your dreams are on the other side of that change. And he talks about how to rewire your brain to change the habits. And it's just, when people tell you about mindset, he really tells you how that really works on a kind of like a neural level on your brain. So I highly, highly recommend that. And what was your question? What was your second question, please?
The most important question of all, which is what makes you a marvelous mom?
Oh, yes. So actually I remember thinking to myself, what do I say? What do I say when it comes to this? And I really want to take a stand for every single mom that listens to this, and give them permission to what I'm about to, through what I'm about to say. Yeah. Because what I think that makes me a marvelous mom is the fact that I am following my own desires, which means that being a mom or being a single mom doesn't stop me from following my dreams. It actually motivates me, and it shows me that even though it's harder, I need to work so much more to still have the best life that I possibly can for myself. Because when we are fulfilled as parents, we are in the best shape and in the best position to raise our children from the point of view of teaching them how to be strong people in the world and how to go after their own dreams. And if we don't follow our examples, then, if we don't show them this as an example, and if we sacrifice ourselves and we would deny ourselves the things, well, I can't do this because I'm a mom, or I can't start a business because I am a mom, etc., then we're not really being that example to them. So I would say following my own desires. And also, I've been reading quite a lot about conscious parenting. I mean, honestly, we live in such a wonderful times. Like, our parents didn't have access to all of these wonderful resources that we do.
Right.
And I think what also makes me marvelous is this was tough. This was tough, but I think I'm over it now. I've walked through it now. Was the realization that Mia, my daughter, is not the extension of me, and it's not my job to plan her life. And this is easier said than done, because all I know and all I now understand that I can do is to teach her everything I know and give her the best values so she can go in the world and make the right decisions. But ultimately, it's not up to me to give her ideas what she should do. I can only give her opportunities to explore, so then she can make her own choices. And I think this is really what makes me a marvelous mom. I mean, we've got a very good relationship. Well, obviously, I'm a parent, and I'm quite strict as well. But yeah, I think that putting yourself first and giving yourself permission just equips you so much better to show up more powerfully for them as a parent.
Amen. I agree with that 100%. And love everything you said. And I just think you're truly marvelous. And so where can everybody go find you if they want to follow you on social media or check out what it is that you offer?
Absolutely. So you can connect with me on social media, like I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Alex Rudnicka. So if you don't know how to spell that, then you can have a look, like in the title of the podcast. I totally understand that. And my website is ceofemaleentrepreneur.com, and then you can read everything about what we do as a company, and we can take it from there.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you again, Alex, so much for being here. Your message is inspiring, and I'm so grateful to have women out there like you who are doing this and helping other women to be, better and stronger versions of themselves. It totally aligns with what we're doing here in the Marvelous Moms community. So thank you again for being here. And to everybody else listening, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Have a marvelous day. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you want to take action right now, you're feeling inspired and you're feeling enlightened, and you really want to own this role as a marvelous mom, go to the website marvelousmomsclub.com/me and create your own personal Marvelous Moms manifesto. That is a tongue twister. marvelousmomsclub.com/me. You go fill in some great information, and in the end, you'll have a beautiful manifesto to display where only you can see or the whole family can see, where you can really, really own your role as a marvelous mom and step inside those goals and those ambitions and dreams that you have to become an even more marvelous mom to your beautiful family. So again, marvelousmomsclub.com/me. We will see you over there.